I'm still talking just to, make noise, because the sound of my voice is my most favorite sound in the world. We're just gonna wait for this dumb thing to start here. My least favorite part, when YouTube echoes back at me. All right, we're starting up. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening for our March meeting of the La Mesa Foothills Democratic Club. It's Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Yes, we have decided to let March back in, even after how badly it behaved last time it was here. I am Mitch Wagner. I am VP Communications for the La Mesa Foothills Democratic Club. We have a fantastic lineup of guests to speak with us this evening. Democratic Party candidates running to succeed Shirley Weber in the California 79th Assembly District, which has considerable overlap with the club territory. And as a surprise guest, we have Shirley Weber herself here to speak with us about her work as Secretary of State. As always, we are streaming this live on our YouTube channel. So if you have friends or family who can't make it tonight on Zoom, or you experience technical difficulties and have to leave us, you can watch that on the YouTube channel. Just search for La Mesa Foothills Democratic Club on YouTube. My wife is watching tonight. Hi, honey. If you have anything you need to bring to our attention, or you notice any technical problem or anybody disrupting the meeting, please message either of my two board colleagues, Evelyn Andrade and Katie Sagetti. So let's begin. We're going to start with our club president, Tina, who is going to give us an update on what the club is up to. And I'm going to unmute Tina, not like that other time. Hello, Tina.
Hi, I had unmuted me and then you put me back on mute. Welcome, everybody. I'm so grateful we're all here. There's some very, very impressive people here with us tonight, and I'm excited to see you, and hopefully we can hear from you later. As you know, in our club, we do not do endorsements in dem-on-dem races. We don't believe that dem-on-dem violence is productive. So what we will do is we will have a forum tonight, and you will hear all of the candidates speak, and hopefully they will all have enough time that you will fall in love with one of them. And if you do, we hope that happens, then you're more than welcome to volunteer to help them. Hopefully all the candidates can put up their information in the chat about how to contact their campaigns. You can volunteer for them, give them money, give them time, make phone calls, whatever you want to do to help them. And we really encourage that very strongly. We want to also let you know that we're going to hopefully have some time tonight at the end of the meeting that those of you that don't normally speak to the club can have a minute if you would like, and you can talk about what's new in your life. If you put in your garden, or you've got a cute picture of your dog that you want to show us all. We want to connect with each other a little more deeply than we are right now. So if those of you that have fun, exciting, happy news to share, please do it. We'll have just a very short time at the end of the meeting for each of you to say something if you would like. And those of you that don't get to talk next month, hopefully we will do it next month. This month, we'll do it next month as well. Thank you so much for being here, and I will cede the rest of my time to Dr. Shirley Weber.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Thank you, Tina. I am unmuting Dr. Weber now momentarily. There we go. Okay. Dr. Weber, you should be, there you go. Up.
I am here, yes.
Great,
well,
great.
All, it's great to be here with you, and a great thing to do on a cold and rainy night, to be sitting at home and listening to you at the same time, which is amazing. But first of all, I want to thank you all for your support always for me for the last 8 or 9 years in terms of my time in the Assembly. And transitioning to the Secretary of State was quite an honor. I had not sought the position, but was honored that the governor wanted me to serve in this capacity, especially in this difficult time. So I'm not going to take much time because we have some great candidates we need to listen to and hear what they have to say, and you can make your choices about that. But I just want to let you know that right now, one of the most significant things in the Secretary of State's office is the ongoing and onslaught against our voting rights. And we are pleased with the fact that we had over 80% of all Californians who were registered to vote in this last election. And not just because I think that that we had a true opposition to vote against that motivated a lot of people, but in addition to that, we made voting much easier. We made it more convenient. People had more than one day to vote. They had multiple ways to vote. They could vote by mail. They could actually vote in person. They could take their ballots to their libraries and various places. So we saw that the convenience of voting went up, and as a result, people's participation went up. Our goal is to continue to do that. Clearly, that is not desirable and pleasing to a significant number of people. The Republicans think it's horrible when we have 80% of all of our registered voters voting. And as a result, there are a number of things that are occurring even right now in our state to try to block that from happening. Across the nation, I'm a part of the National Association now of Secretaries of State. We are seeing hundreds and hundreds of bills in about 35 different states that are all designed to make voting more difficult, to add to the process, to limit people's rights to get absentee ballots, and a host of things. And so my goal is to try to help people in these difficult times, as we're doing so many other things, to help us understand how we got to where we are, but equally important, what the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was really all about. Many people think it was about giving African Americans the right to vote. It was not. It was basically designed to protect their right to vote, and that the various things that happened, whether it's literacy tests or poll taxes and all those kinds of things, were designed as obstacles to people to vote. And the same is being true with some of the discussions of voter ID and so forth and so on. So I want people to understand that, so that as we are fighting it, we are equipped to deal with it with information, and not just realize that maybe this is a good idea, because many of the things that started in the past were good ideas that on the surface didn't look bad, but it turned out to be real obstacles to people's right to vote. And that is the ultimate, that's one of the challenges that we face. So we're working on start having some town halls. Some of you talked about the stuff I've done in the past with various town halls. We're looking at doing some town halls, some informations, to bring experts, bringing people who were affected by the obstacles to voting in 1965, and have them talk about what it was like to deal with poll taxes and people, those kinds of things, as well as things that are happening right now that I'm getting complaints about, people blocking polls in California and making it difficult and harassing people who come to vote. So I want people to understand that voting is extremely important and obviously very powerful. And as a result, that's why people want to block us from voting. And we're going to try to keep pushing that. And I'm hoping that when we do these, I will make sure that the La Mesa Democratic Club, one of my favorite clubs, will get all the information about the town halls, the Zoom meetings, the Facebook Lives, and all kinds of things, so that you can be better equipped to deal with the challenges that are faced across the nation and also faced in California. So we hope California will be the lead in terms of leading against all these draconian methods to take us backwards and to limit the rights of individuals to vote. So rest assured that what we did was very successful in California and in Georgia, and people don't like it. And they're going to do whatever they can to block us from doing it anymore. So just want to let you know that as we continue to battle. Thank you so much for your support. And voting is important. I think last night's voting in LA may have gotten 10 or 15% of the registered voters, which I think is criminal. And we need to do a little bit better than that. But thanks so very much, and look forward to when we'll have a chance to just chat and talk, and you can ask me questions, but I know you have another agenda right now. So let's enjoy that. Take care.
Thank you very much, Dr. Weber. So we're going to move on now, and I'm going to introduce my co-host, Rick Epps. Professor Rick Epps is a friend of the club, and he's been before us before. He's a San Diego native and Helix High School alumnus, longtime political consultant, analyst, and retired professor of political science and public administration at San Diego State University. And he currently is an academic senate president professor at Imperial Valley College. Studied locally, served honorably in the United States Air Force. Welcome, Professor Epps. I'm going to unmute you. That's good. Okay, there you go.
Great. Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate that. And thank you all for being here this evening. And we do have a exciting evening with our candidate forum for the 79th Assembly District. Very happy again to see Dr. Shirley Weber here along with the candidates. Thank you for your time tonight, and we look forward to having an engaging conversation and learning a little bit about all of you. So having started that, let me go through first and welcome all of you. First, we will have Aeiramique Glass Blake. Then we have Leticia Munguia, Shane Parmely, and Akilah Weber. And what I will do is basically give you a format we'll be kind of following tonight. So first I will give you an introduction, and you'll get about 2 minutes to introduce yourself and why you're here, why you're running, what people should know about you and why they should vote for you. And then we'll go into a Q&A, and we'll ask a series of questions to all of you, or I'll be asking a series of questions, and then some follow-up questions to your comments. And then at the end, we'll give each of you about 3 minutes for closing statements. And we probably will have some open audience questions. There are some questions in the chat room that Mitch and I will try to make sure that we get to as many as possible. So with that, I'm just going to go in order. So first, I'd like to welcome Aeiramique. Did I say that right? Aeiramique? Please say I said that right. I don't want to be messing up anybody's name. Are you here? Mitch,
there we go. I'll try to unmute her again. Oh, there we go. Okay. I see she's unmuted.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Hi, so first of all, nice to have you here. And so the first question again is, so why are you here? Why are you running? And why should people vote for you? And again, we'll give each about 2 minutes for a question.
Thank you. Yes, so my name is Aeiramique Glass Blake. I am a San Diego native, born and raised, and I'm running because I want to make sure that we change the political power structure. I'm running because COVID deeply impacted people on multiple different levels, and we need to bring equity and address these different issues throughout our community. I have a deep love for the 79th District. I've done work from La Mesa to Lemon Grove to San Diego, Mission Valley. My work spans wide and deep, and I want to continue that work on the state level. I believe that if we put equity first, if we put justice first, then we can get to unity and peace. But in order to get there, we must first go through justice. And so that's what I intend to do. I intend to carry the work that I've been doing around criminal justice reform, around public safety, around education equity, and around economic development, and really starting with the communities that have been deeply impacted, starting with the most vulnerable communities, but also understanding when we meet everyone's need, we will be better overall. And so that's why I'm running. I ran for Congress previously. I ended up being hospitalized, fighting for my life, dealing with cancer and endometriosis. And previous to that, around the same time, I lost my mom almost 4 years ago. So I have always been a fighter, but on top of that, I've always been a person who has the ability to create coalitions and bring people together, really create policy that works for not just some of us, but all of us. And that's why I'm running. So I hope to earn your support, and I look forward to this forum tonight.
Exactly 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aeiramique. Appreciate it. Next, we'll have our next candidate, who is Leticia Mungia. Welcome. And so if you'd be so kind as to unmute her, Mitch.
I think I already did, but I'll check that again. Yep, she is unmuted. You are free to speak, Ms. Mungia.
Thank you so much, everyone. Good evening. My name is Leticia Mungia, and I'm a born and raised member of our community here in the 79th. I do want to let you know that today I'm before you to seek my ability to share my story of why I'm running and to be able to learn more about all of you. I will share with you that I was born and raised here in the 79th. I also wanted to share that I'm a product of public education. Both of my parents are immigrants from Mexico. Both of them were farm workers, and they bought their home in 1971. I was the first in my family to graduate from high school. I was the first to graduate in my family from community college, and subsequently, I started doing community organizing work in communities of color. I'll share with you that I did organizing work at City Heights, National City, Barrio Logan, and Sherman Elementary area. I implemented a tutoring program to help our communities and support our students there at the local Sherman Heights Elementary School. I want to let you know that I had an opportunity to go to law school right after I graduated from San Diego State University. And I've been giving back to my community as a community organizer, a labor advocate, and I'm here before you to share my story of why I'm ready to be the representative for the 79th. I want to let you know that my commitment is to public education, highlighting the inequities in healthcare, talking about our economy, and making sure we ensure that folks are going back to work and that we create jobs. Thank you for the opportunity to be here before you this evening. I look forward to learning more about you, and I thank you for hosting this forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leticia. Next, we have Shane Parmely.
Hi there, Shane Suzanne Parmely. My pronouns are she, her, hers, or they, them, theirs. I'm a teacher, unionist, single parent community organizer, and I was born in '79. I bought my grandparents' aging house in Bonita, and I'm raising a fourth generation here. I'm running for state assembly because this would be a continuation of the work I've been doing for the past 9 years at the state level with the California Teachers Association. I have been teaching for over 20 years, but about a decade ago, I realized if I wanted to have a bigger impact on the issues that teachers are seeing our kids bring to school or our own families are dealing with, that I needed to get involved outside of the classroom. So I got involved in my teacher union, which has led me to being elected to leadership positions at the local, state, and national level. And due to my extensive track record of getting work done on a wide range of issues, I'm endorsed by the California Teachers Association. And my three main priorities as a legislator, if elected, number one is addressing the inequities that lead to disparate outcomes in our community. And we see them in 79. So wages, housing, healthcare, food security, criminal justice. While these, a lot of the issues, I don't see them as siloed. They're very interwoven and interconnected and need a systemic approach as opposed to Band-Aid legislation. I would like to see us transition to the green economy and to address climate change and environmental justice issues, and then also grow our economy and create more skilled, high-paying jobs here in 79. And then obviously, I would like to fully fund public education, preschool through college to help close the opportunity gap. Your parents' income shouldn't determine how many resources are available at your local school. California is the 5th largest economy in the world, but we fund 38th. We're like 38th in the states for funding for our schools. And this leaves it down to the parents of the local school to decide, do the kids get to go on the field trip? Do they raise enough money for things? And that's an inequity issue that needs to be addressed so that everybody
Okay,
that has
2 minutes, please wrap up.
To achieve their potential. And that's it. Shane Suzanne Parmely.
Wrapped up well. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Appreciate it. Last, we have Akilah Weber. Akilah, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, fellow Democrats. It's so good to see everyone, even if we're on Zoom. For those of you who don't know, my name is Dr. Akilah Weber. I'm a wife, a mother of 2 very handsome boys, a local physician, vice mayor of La Mesa, and a lifelong, very active Democrat. I've been a member of La Mesa-Foothills Democratic Club board. I've been elected ADEM for the last 4 years, and I'm actually currently on the California Democratic Party Rules Committee. I was actually born and raised in the 79th district, and I'm back here raising my own children. As a 25-year resident of this district, I am very intimately aware of our needs and our challenges. I know that we must improve access to healthcare so that every person in this district has access to quality and affordable care. We must close the academic achievement gap so that the children in this district will have equal opportunity to thrive. We must improve economic security for every person and every business, especially our small businesses. And we have got to continue to fight for equity for all so that every person in this district can reach the American dream. I know that we can achieve all of this together, and I have the proven record as an elected official and a physician of getting things done. I will fight for healthy families, healthy communities, and a healthy democracy. Once again, my name is Dr. Akilah Weber. It would be my honor to serve you as your next state assembly member. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Well, this is going to be a really interesting evening. I think we have a great group here, and I think we have I'm really excited to hear your responses to some of the questions that have been handed to me to pass on to you. And so let's go ahead and get started. And again, I'll be asking the same question.
Actually, before we do, I just want to encourage everybody, put your questions in chat. We'll get to them at the end of this part of the evening's events.
Yeah, we're going to try to. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so the first question is, and again, I'll be going to asking this of each of you, and I'll probably start at the top and then work reverse order for the next question. The first question is, and I'm just going to start with Aeiramique. Does policing in the state need to be transformed based on the events of the past, so certainly the past 10 years or so? And what actions would you take to do that? You need to unmute her. There you go.
I'm looking here. Oh, no, we're good.
Got it. You got it. Thanks so much. I believe the question was, do I believe that police reform needs to take place throughout the state? Is that the gist of the question?
Yes.
So yes, I am a firm believer of that. And I currently am a co-chair woman on the community advisory board for the chief of police in San Diego. And previous to that, I did a lot of work in La Mesa around incidents that took place at Helix High School and incidents that took place throughout the community with some of the policing issues. And I built an amazing relationship with Chief Vasquez. And I really not only fought for, but then ultimately I look at everything through a restorative lens, really built a relationship and had the young people build a relationship so that we can move forward. And so a lot of the work and where I specialize in is public safety and criminal justice reform. I believe that, an officer needs to be held accountable. But I also believe that, we've had, and when people talk about reimagining, we've had a lot of conversations about reimagining, but we do have best practices and we do have things that we know actually work. And so I believe that we have to make sure that we begin to put those things in place. We need to make sure that our officers not only get more training, but are held accountable and held accountable in ways in which you should not be able to commit a crime or brutalize someone in La Mesa and then go get a job in National City or San Diego. There needs to be a statewide database that makes sure that officers who do harm within their department and make the rest of the officers look bad across this nation don't get to continue to hold on to that power. And so I'm a firm believer of that. But I always say, I will burn your wall down, but I'll build a bridge when you're ready. And what that truly means for me is I will fight against what is right, what is unfair, what is unjust. But I also come back and figure out solutions that work for all of us. And that is a lot of the work that I was able to do with Chief Vasquez and that I continue to do with Chief Neslight. And I sit on the probation board. And so I direct a lot of how our criminal justice and public safety is being reformed right now with a restorative lens.
Very good. Thank you so much, Aeiramique. Same question goes to Leticia. How do you view police reform? Oh, you got to unmute again.
Thank you. Sir, how much time do I have for the question response?
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
So this question is, I knew it's been one of the most critical and critically asked questions in all of our forums and debates. And so for me, I come to you with the commitment that a candidate for the 79th, I come from a perspective that I'm committed to building a tomorrow that includes all. And for me, coming to you with my law degree, additionally with my criminal justice administration degree from San Diego State, it's important that I share with you that I want to acknowledge the work that Dr. Weber has done. Back in August 19 when AB 392 was passed. That was historical. It was groundbreaking. It established the platform for police reform and accountability. And she takes all that credit for the work that she did at that point in time. Our country has been through some of the most devastating incidences where there has been abuse of authority. So the next level of our involvement for Assembly District 79 is to move us forward and to have a conversation surrounding the incidences that have occurred, what has worked, what needs to be changed, and how do we heal our community moving forward. It's going to have to include elements of transparency, accountability, being able to create discussions around what are best practices and where are we able to build on what has worked. The commitment to ensure that our communities are safer, that we have an equal voice at the table is absolutely critical as we seek justice and as we continue to move Assembly District 79 forward in building a tomorrow that includes all. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. The same question will go now to Shane. How do you perceive police reform? And just one moment as we get you untethered.
Candidates can untether themselves now when their time comes to speak.
Oh, great. Okay, great.
So a few things. Number one, at the state level, we need to get rid of qualified immunity. And that's something that's already been done in Republican-run states. So we get rid of qualified immunity and we have their, actual accountability, and police officers can be held personally liable. And we don't have to watch the mental gymnastics that goes into creating loopholes of what somebody could have reasonably assumed within the line of their duty, that to avoid being personally sued. I think obviously I can lose my teaching credential. Medical people can lose their license to practice medicine. Law enforcement officers we need to create a process to revoke their ability to work within law enforcement. So when there are issues, they can be put forward to be fired and not just move on to the next jurisdiction. I was shocked when I discovered that my hairdresser had to spend more time to get her license to bleach my hair than, to put chemicals in my hair than a police officer does before they can get certified to spray chemicals in my face. I think that's a huge problem. I think we need to up the standards for coming into law enforcement and the training, and then reevaluate what the training actually is, because you are going to instinctively go back to whatever you spend the most time practicing. So if you spend more time practicing shooting people than you do de-escalating situations, I don't think anybody in our society should be surprised when the outcome goes towards shooting people or violence as opposed to the de-escalation. So I think we need to look at the training and the ratio of training that current law enforcement is receiving. I think we need to move jobs that are not law enforcement, specific off of the police workload and reassign it to actual trained specialists, like social workers, mental health professionals, homeless outreach workers. When the police are literally the only people you can call right now, and the training is towards law enforcement and criminals and pushing people into the prison system, then we're wasting people's time and energy and our tax dollars paying for all of that. the other thing is I think we need community oversight review boards with an investigative power. Like it's pointless to have community oversight if they don't have the ability to subpoena people or go, have somebody who will go do an investigation and bring information back to them. So I think, and then additionally, like my dad was a deputy sheriff. I grew up in a law enforcement family, and I see the trauma of that job is traumatic for everybody involved. And we need to have a more open conversation to create a policing system that doesn't leave a portion of our society not wanting to call the police. And that's the bigger issue for whatever reason. And my 3 minutes are up. So
thank you, Shane. I appreciate it. Dr. Weber.
Thank you very much for this question. And this is actually one of the reasons why I decided to run for the state assembly. Being on the La Mesa City Council and dealing with some of the issues that we've had to deal with in the city surrounding police, policing, and interactions with community, and really trying to bring transparency and justice has been a challenge. And there are things that I recognize that I can't do on a local level that have to be changed at a state level. And some of those have been talked about already. There's a lot of loopholes. There's a lot of things that you must do to try to do the right thing, which in other areas and in other professions, people wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity. As everyone here is probably aware of the issues that we had in May in La Mesa. Issues with policing are not new. We had them in 2018 with Helix, and we've had them for a very long time. In 2015, a county judge told the city of La Mesa that they needed to establish a citizens police oversight review board, and they pushed back on it. They pushed back on it in 2018. I'm very proud of the fact that working with the community, many members who are also on this call today, that we were finally able to establish a citizens police oversight review board in La Mesa that has the power to investigate every complaint, has the power to hire an independent police auditor, has the power to request a subpoena if they are not getting cooperation from the police department, has the power to review policies and procedures to make sure that our police department is up to standards and doing best practices. I definitely believe in the reimagining of our police force, which is why here in La Mesa, I asked our police department to start looking at other models, thinking outside the box. They went to, and I suggested that they go to Eugene, Oregon to look at the COOS program. And we actually implemented a program like that here in La Mesa, starting in November. And what we found from November until February is that instead of sending police officers out for these non-urgent issues or non-emergent or non-police issues, especially around homelessness issues, their calls or them going out dropped by 40%. And instead we sent out other people, social workers, mental health therapists. So that's a part of reimagining. That's what we've done here so far. I know that reforms on policing are a huge concern for the California Legislative Black Caucus. I'm very proud to have been endorsed by them. They have had a lot of great bills come through. AB 392 was great. Senator, one of the other senators also put in SB 1421, which allowed for the release of the officer's information at MTS because he lied on his police report. But we need more, right? We talked about the inability right now to decertify. So actually the officer in La Mesa, had he just retired, he could have just gone to a different department. And so we need to prevent that from happening. And Senator Bradford had a bill on the floor. Unfortunately, it died. But I'm very happy to hear that it's back up at SB 2 this year. We really need to start talking about the ability to decertify these rogue officers that have a history of repetitive bad behavior. We also need to start talking about—
That's 3 minutes, please wrap up.
Well, thank you. Yes, we need some significant police reforms, and I'm glad that I've been able to do what I can in La Mesa, and I look forward to continuing it in Sacramento.
Thank you, Dr. Weber.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Okay, so what I want to do, I'm going to stay in the social context for a bit before we move on to some economics and other things. But so let's talk about this in the context of education policy. So in others, we understand and how this we need police reform and the processes to maybe institute that, as you've all clearly articulated. What about that in the context of education reform in the state? How do you see that? And even in conjunction with regard to charter schools, how do you see that? How do you see education reform in both locally and collectively in our state? And I'll start with, if you don't mind, I'll start with Dr. Weber. Let me go the other way so I don't leave you to the end.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for that question. You know, it is said that education is the great equalizer, and that is so true. And because of that, you know, it is our responsibility to make sure that every child in public school here in California has the ability to graduate with a very strong foundation to go on and be able to do whatever he or she wants to do. Whether it's going to a trade, a 2-year university, a 4-year university, go on to graduate school, he or she has that foundation to do that. And in order to do that, we have to really start dealing with the issue of equity versus equality and making sure that we are focusing on equity in order to get to equality. We've got to close the achievement gap. Stanford research just put a study out that looked over the last 10 years of math and reading scores for grades 3 through 8. And what they've shown is that, you know, Black students are about a grade behind their white counterparts. And based on their projection, and this was pre-COVID, that they expected that to double by 2026. And so we've got to make sure that we are looking at every community and every child to see what resources that they need and give them what they need. We need to make sure that funding through LCSF has oversight and accountability to ensure that it's going to the right places. And we also need to make sure that we're going back and evaluating to make sure that the things that we put in place, the money that we put into different programs, that they're working, that we're seeing a change in our academic scores, that we're seeing a change in our community. You know, the reality is that when you close the achievement gap, that creates opportunity. And what that does is that leads to healthy families and healthy futures. And that is why we must focus on improving the academic outcome for every child here in California. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Shane, please.
So I'm curious, I definitely would, if you have a link to the Stanford study, I would really like to see that. Usually the Stanford research that's being put out is actually the Credo Institute, and they're a far right privatizer think tank, and not generally, their previous research has been regularly debunked for being methodologically problematic or using older data. So I am interested in looking at that data. To cycle back to the achievement gap. So the achievement gap talk is always about test scores. So the reality is the test scores are designed so that a third of students always fail. They're bell curved. It is not possible for all students to achieve grade level on a standardized test by design. And if all students suddenly did achieve grade level, they would literally throw the test out and flag it as something had gone wrong, because all children are not allowed to achieve grade level on those tests. The history of testing in our country has always been racist and to promote and perpetuate white supremacy. Testing in our country has never resulted in additional dollars being put into classes or communities that need it who are scoring lower. Usually what it does is it ends up diverting dollars from the classroom and into additional test prep, and then stripping away all of the fun things about school that make it enjoyable. I personally choiced two of my children, actually all three at some point, into failing schools, and those schools were excellent and provided amazing educations. I also opt my children out of standardized testing because I know it's flawed and not a valid measure. And I'm not sure why we would compare students who have had preschool and have all this opportunity to students who have been denied all this opportunity. And that's the bigger issue, is we have an opportunity gap. We have some kids who have access to early childhood education and a lot of kids who don't. And that is where we absolutely need to be spending our money to address the inequities in our community so that all children have fully funded education, preschool through college. As far as charter school reform, because that didn't quite come up, the issue, it's interesting, the issue about charter schools is really kind of cloaks the issue. We're talking about unionized teachers versus non-unionized teachers, because there are plenty of charter schools that have teacher unions. And the charter school movement really has been about privatizing public education. And charter schools don't have to actually accept everybody. So the ACLU study that came out in 2016 said of the schools where we could find their enrollment policies published, 20% of them had flat out blatantly discriminatory enrollment policies. So when you start comparing data, and again, back to that Credo report that everyone likes to cite, They're not actually comparing apples to apples. They're doing this apples to orange comparison that shows the result that they're already promoting politically to begin with, in general, as privatizing public services. And I did not start my timer, so I'm not sure how much more time I have.
You got about 10
You're at 3 minutes.
Okay, there we go. Felt like 3 minutes. I'm a teacher, so that's a 3-minute passing period right there. Okay.
Thank you, Shane. Let me go to Leticia.
Thank you. So I'm going to try to tackle both the public education, but also the charter school question, because both of them are very robust responses. So first and foremost, in the state of California, we're in the 5th largest economy. And education at the core foundation, it allows for opportunity, as the story that I shared with you in my introduction. I'm here before you as a candidate for the 79th as a product of public education. I'm very proud of the fact that I went through San Diego Unified School District. And I share this story because every single one of the educational institutions, with the exception of law school, was a publicly funded education system. San Diego Unified, San Diego City College, and San Diego State University. The opportunities that I received can be had by all of our children attending schools in the state of California. And I think for me, I'm really proud to share this story because it's a manifestation of contribution of resources to our community and to our students. So from an educational perspective, I really want to share with you that the legislature and the work that has been done by Sacramento has been fundamentally changed when they moved to the local control funding formula a couple years back. That specifically dedicated resources to our students with the highest level of learning and resources that were needed for them. And I'll give you the 4 examples. You had free and reduced lunch. You had foster youth. You had homeless youth. And you had English as second language students. We have been doing the funding in the appropriate manner. The only next step in this educational analysis is to ensure that the resources that the state has provided through this funding formula are actually being implemented at our local school districts. That is the next level of analysis. Our students will do better. They have done better. And I think we need to celebrate that aspect of public education. I will share with you that as it relates to community colleges and CSUs, we have to invest and ensure that there's free college opportunities for our youth and to ensure that there's technical and trade opportunities for them as well, if that's what they should choose as a path forward. Regarding charter schools, I will share for all of you who are interested in charter schools, I'm going to direct you to look at In the Public Interest. It's a think tank that provides clear analysis of the impacts of charter schools in our public education system. Most importantly, those charter schools that are out there that are doing amazing work, like our high-tech highs, or for example, Helix High School, that's directly in the heart of the 79th. Those are jewels of learning. And I want to give them credit. The classified staff, the school support staff, and our CTA teachers that are out there doing the work to ensure that students similar to me have the same opportunities of a bright future. So I do
3 minutes.
Oh no, thank you. A lot more to say. Lot more to say. Thank you though.
Thank you, Leticia. Okay, so Aeiramique.
Yes, thank you for that question. So a part of my platform is education equity. And as I've said many times, I am a product of public education, private Christian school education, charter school, and homeschool. And the reason being was public school early on really failed me. And my mom tried to find multiple solutions because everyone see me as like this super bright, super smart person, but I kept falling through the cracks in a lot of areas. I did not learn how to read until I was 10 years old. And I talk about this when Helix High School invited me out to speak. a couple years ago, and I talked about this, of how in many ways kids get pushed through the system, and their needs are not being met. And so I really want to deal with equity in a way that really meets the need. So when we talk about, a lot of people say, you know, public school, we need to make all of them equal, and that is very true. But first, we have to really have the conversation about meeting the needs and meeting our students where they are and giving them what they need, and understanding that we all learn differently. People did not understand how I could be so bright and smart in so many different areas, but not know how to read until I was 10 years old. And that's because no one ever took out the time to figure out how I actually learned and what will work for me. We also need to have a conversation about, you know, equity versus equality in regards to how we are treating different schools and meeting the resources that are needed. When we talk about COVID, we also have to have a real conversation about multiple studies that have come out to say that Black and Brown students are being suspended and expelled at a higher rate than their white peers for doing the same exact thing. And so a lot of my work is around restorative practice and restorative justice. And so to make sure when we implement and change our school culture and climate and our policy and practice changes, that we start to see a reduction in the suspension and expulsion of kids of color. And when that happens, we are dismantling the school to prison pipeline. And so that is a lot of the work that I've been doing and will continue to do on a statewide level. We have to really have hard conversations about what our educational system is actually teaching our students. Why isn't history of Black folks included in what is being taught every single day? If that was included in our history books, we would see that representation there. We would understand where we come from, and we would understand and push out the need to have these special, you know, I think people get frustrated around.
All right, 3 minutes.
Oh, thank you. I've been doing good this whole time.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Everyone's
thank you,
been
Aeiramique.
doing good. We're not scoring people on timekeeping here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I do want to say to all of you, though, that regarding this issue, that I think all of you had very important points, and the idea, and Aeiramique, what you just said then about the multicultural aspect is of history is one of the most damning indictments, not just in our own area, but in the country. The lack of multicultural history and how our history is ascribed to us for, you know, since the beginning of public education is really shameful. And to this point, we have done nothing to correct it. And that's one of the biggest changes that I can see. It's one of the issues that we need to confront. But much as I wanted to go, I have to have that conversation with all of you about all this, but we have to move on. So let me jump to the next question. I'll jump to something regarding the more of the economic aspect of our state. As you know, we are one of the strongest economies in the world, just our state alone. But we've seen recently like a huge number of high profile companies that have made an exodus out of California, you know, and have moved to other states. You know, Oracle, of course, Hewlett Packard, Tesla, and many others are all, you know, Apple's built huge facilities away from here. I mean, you know, do you have a concern about those entities that are leaving our state? And, you know, how do you think we should deal with the aspect of these companies leaving, along with the people who are leaving with them? Because it's not just the companies; it's also the economic vitality and the numbers of population in our state are also leaving. So let me start again. I'm going to start with Aeiramique this time. We'll start at the top of the chain and go back the other way.
You know, I'm going to say that politics plays a huge role in all of this. And I think we have to have and I've said this before, and I didn't get to say this in my last answer, but, you know, I don't believe that all unions and labor is created equal. And I think special interests play a part in all of this. But I also want to talk about, you know, it is extremely expensive to live, and people are being priced out. Right now, the idea is that San Diego will become a high-tech center that will be a place that is going to be able to create a lot of opportunity and a lot of jobs. But we really need to start looking at how we can incentivize programs to keep these companies here. I think we also need to have really hard conversations around our environmental justice issues and our climate change goals, and how that is directly connected to some of the issues that we have around transportation and certain companies being pushed out. So I feel like this is a very comprehensive conversation that needs to be had. And I'm still learning even more about my ideas around and working with others that are in this field around what can be done on a state level. But one of the things that I know about on my end is really creating, and I say this, in order to have economic development, we have to have workforce development. And so there's those folks that are already in the field and have that trade behind them and have that educational piece, but there's a lot of folks that don't, and they end up not being able to afford to stay here and can't find jobs. And so I want to be able to work on the state level with these different companies that does not compromise our climate and environmental goals, but keeps them here and gives the ability for us to create opportunity and jobs, because that helps all of us in regards to our economy. And I think education and that trade school and free trade school and making sure that our formerly incarcerated and our foster youth and our unsheltered brothers and sisters have opportunities that aren't being given and talked about right now.
Thank you so much, Aeiramique. Leticia.
Actually, before Leticia starts, we got a quick update from the chat. Tesla's not moving out. That was I supplied that information, and that was wrong. They're threatening to move out, but then they're saying not. So whatever. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, sorry, we have several other companies that are bailing out, so there's enough of them on the list, let me tell you. Okay, Leticia.
Thank you. So as we relate to corporations and being able to incentivize the economy, I'm going to address this question from a three-perspective analysis. First and foremost, I think that before we can look at incentivizing industry and or organizations, corporations to come in and create an opportunity here in California, I think we need to look at what's happening in this pandemic environment in our own local communities. You know, taking the example in the data from the state of California as it relates to the unemployment rates in our own Assembly District 79. And I'll just share this. The data is on the website under January 20th of this past month, actually almost 2 months ago. The La Mesa area had an unemployment rate of 8.1%. Lemon Grove had an unemployment rate of 10.5%. Generally, the city of San Diego was facing a 9% general unemployment rate. So for me, the issues of corporations leaving or threatening to leave is really absolutely critical. We, as a fifth largest economy, we need to stay committed to incentivizing and creating job growth. Those are two critical pieces. And for me, when I look at the economy and the recovery in this post-pandemic world, I ask that we step back and that we reimagine an economy that's inclusive. One of our hardest hits, when you look at what's happened through this economy, our local small businesses are the ones that are suffering at the greatest levels of inequality. And as we look at getting past the vaccination elements of COVID, I want to ask us as a community to look at investing in our small businesses, in our local community businesses, specifically in how we invest our dollars moving forward. Our small businesses is where we see the highest level of investment in our community. We have a higher levels of equity. We have a highest level of inclusiveness as it relates to men, women, Latinx business owners where we've had highest levels of growth. It's absolutely critical that before we take another step in the 79th, that we look at developing jobs, improving our business opportunity for small businesses, and that we use this as an equity opportunity to create growth in our communities that I've mentioned, to ensure that we have small economic generators that reemploy our communities that are facing the highest level of unemployment. From an inclusive perspective, to ensure that our small businesses have the opportunity and access to growth, and also financial support as the small business packages are being unveiled from Sacramento. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. Shane.
So I'm curious where you got your information or what you're basing the claim off of. Because like, that's not rhetorical. I would like to see what it is that you're citing. Because that's the argument that's been used for a decade in this race to the bottom for states to incentivize tax breaks and tax cuts and tax credits for multinational billion-dollar corporations. And so we've ended up with state budgets across the country that their general funds are getting gutted, and they're having to cut social service programs and things because they're just giving millions of dollars to billion-dollar corporations as it is. So while the ones that you listed might be leaving, the ones that are here are not, and they're expanding. So Google, Apple, Qualcomm. I just did a quick search because I was like, is there some new information I missed? PayPal, eBay, Intel, they're all expanding. I know Qualcomm stock, I think it quadrupled in the last year. Unfortunately, like the pandemic has been really good for certain industries, billion-dollar industries, and now they have more money than ever. So yeah, there are going to be shady people like Elon Musk, who I hope no one aspires to be like, who are going to be as selfish and narcissistic as possible and leave the state so he can hoard as much money as possible. But I don't think we should chase after people like that. And I don't think we can generalize it to all the other companies in the state. Even if we lose a little bit, we are still we're not the fifth largest economy in the United States out of the other states in the world. So we have a little wiggle room there. Billionaires and billion-dollar corporations absolutely need to be paying their fair share of taxes. A third of our residents in California qualify for Medi-Cal. That's not okay. And we have companies like McDonald's and Walmart who absolutely could be paying their employees $30 an hour and have full benefits packages based on the amount of money that they're making. And they just don't, and we're not making them do it. So while there are certain producers or companies that might be able to move out of state, the bottom line is we have the buying power here in California. So Tesla still wants us to buy their cars. They might relocate to Texas because they can get away with paying less in taxes. But they're still wanting to work in our market and take advantage of our consumers. So, I think we need to re-look at the giveaways that people don't realize currently exist. And this is one of the things with Prop 15 and Schools and Communities First, taking a closer look at like which companies actually, not only are they not paying their fair share in property taxes, they've had tax credits where they're not even contributing to the general fund, and there's no mechanism to go back and reevaluate if that tax credit is still warranted. And so any money, any tax credit or giveaway to these companies is literally, for every dollar that they do that's 40 cents that doesn't go into public education and 60 cents that doesn't go into the general fund for social safety net services. So when we see our social workers working at twice their caseload at the county, and us not having enough mental health providers, that's because the billion-dollar multinational corporations are not paying their fair share in taxes.
All right, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you.
So, and now we'll go to Dr. Weber, please.
Well, thank you very much for that question. And it is a concern because when corporations leave, those are jobs, those are wages. Those are families, those are individuals. Those are Californians, those are our neighbors, our family members. And so, and it also causes a dent in our economy. And so we definitely don't want to have large corporations leaving because that impacts, individuals, that impacts the cities that those companies were in. their budgets and the overall wellness of that overall community. And so, it is something that we need to keep an eye on. I know one of the things that some of these companies say is that they don't necessarily feel supported, not necessarily talking about giving things, but when, you're implementing rules and legislations and policies, I believe in bringing everyone to the table. I believe in hearing out both sides, and I believe in coming to solutions that work for everyone. And when everyone is not included in those discussions, then sometimes it's difficult to come to a resolution that works for everyone. And so I think one of the things that we need to do is make sure that when we're having these conversations, when we're enacting new laws and regulations, that we bring the different groups, the different organizations, the different sides, and say, how can we come to this conclusion that works really for everyone? And then the other thing is, definitely focusing in on our small businesses. Our small businesses, I've said for a very long time, those are the heart of the city. That makes each city unique. And it provides the city with funds to allow it to continue to grow and be alive. And that's why on the city council, one of the things that I did was to dedicate to focusing on our small businesses, especially those outside of the village. And I gave away my funds, my yearly funds for conferences or dinners to establish a specific fund for our businesses in West La Mesa so that they can apply for those grants for their businesses to revitalize some of the businesses that really needed it. And then during COVID, we have used a lot of our funding through the CARES Act to actually give back to our small businesses that are really hurting, because we recognize the fact that, what makes La Mesa so unique is the businesses that you find. What makes Lemon Grove and Southeast San Diego and areas of Chula Vista unique are the small businesses that are there, that are employing people that live there, and that the money that they bring in is directly having a positive impact on the community that they're around. So we need to make sure that we're working on a state level with all parties and all factions. And then, on a more local level, we need to make sure that we are continuing to support the small businesses in each of these communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Dr. Weber. How are we doing on time, Mitch?
Oh, we've got, well, it's 8:02. We could probably go a couple more questions. Well, maybe
great.
one more question, because by the time everybody talks, it will be.
Okay, so what I'll do, if we can, if possible, I would like to get through a couple more of these questions. So if we could try and work it down to maybe 2 minutes, if possible. If you can't, no worries, we get it. But I'm going to try and squeeze in a couple more. So let's get to the question on affordable housing. How do you think we could go forward and promote affordable housing in San Diego? We have as you know, serious issue here with people who make decent wages but still can't afford to purchase, and rentals gone, and it's horrific. Think about, you can make a really good salary and think that most of it goes to your rent and not to your living standard, which also directly affects your economy, right? So let me start with, since I started at the bottom, let me start with Dr. Weber. How would you go about dealing with the affordable housing issue here in San Diego, the necessity of affordable housing?
Well, thank you very much for that question. And a lot of times when people think about affordable housing, they think of a lot of the apartments or the low income housing that cities are building. We're building a lot here in La Mesa as well. But it really is deeper than that. It's really about being able to provide people with the opportunity to purchase a home, because a home gives you stability for yourself and your family. It gives you stability for that community. When you have a home, you feel more invested in that community. And so that's really what we should be focused on. And there are a couple of ways that we can get there. One, increase our wages. We've got to start paying people more money, increase our wages. California is extremely expensive, and we need to make sure that we're paying people for the work that they're doing so that they can purchase a home. The second is really, and we talked about this before, investing in our education system so that when people graduate from high school, they have the ability to go on to a trade school or to a university. And all of those routes will provide people with very good paying jobs. And so we need to make sure that we are making sure that our children are growing up and learning and able to go off and get very good paying jobs, and that ultimately those jobs will constantly give them enough money to be able to afford a home. And so that's how we deal with the housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Shane.
Well, there's a couple different things, and I'm going to probably run out of time. Number one, we need to repeal Costa-Hawkins and allow for rent control at the local level on all different types of housing units. After the recession, when the economy collapsed and the housing market collapsed, we had a lot of out-of-state and international buyers or investment companies come in and swoop up blocks and blocks of properties throughout the city, and then progressively start to jack up the rent. And then, you know, mom and pop renters also started raising their rents. And so this is one of the reasons why rents got high in San Diego so quickly and did not keep pace with our wages. And that's money that is being taken out of the state of California and out of our local economy. So these higher rents aren't staying locally here and helping circulate within our economy. These are not mom and pop. Secondly, I think affordable housing has definitions, and so affordable housing is not affordable for most of the people who are, you know, doubling up in houses. There's bandwidths of, we need mixed income rental and properties, and also low equity home loan programs, so that you don't have to have 20% for a down payment in order to qualify to purchase a house. We absolutely need to create more opportunities for people to buy houses, exactly, lay down roots, have stability. Kids aren't moving. You know, a lot of my students that I've, you know, at the continuation high schools that I would work with, they'd had, you know, 6 different elementary schools because they weren't able to just stay put in a house and grow up, or an apartment. I'm a fan of Alex Lee's social housing bill, AB 387. So it has mixed use income rental and also limited equity home ownership housing, and then also mixed use developments. I think we need to look at already developed urban corridors along transit lines and do targeted investment in the community to ensure that we don't have segregated housing where it's like there's the low income and there's the extremely low income and there's the affordable. We want everybody to be living in the same, in an integrated community in a society. And I think that's probably
2 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you, Shane. Okay, Leticia.
Thank you. So for me, looking at the issue of housing and affordability, I think there's elements regarding being able to have being able to have jobs that pay above and beyond poverty level jobs. You know, part of my commitment has been in the labor community. I've had an opportunity and be very humbled to share with everyone on today's forum that I've been a labor advocate. I've been out there working on behalf as a representative supporting school workers, community college representatives, as well as our City of San Diego and City of Coronado workers at the bargaining table. And for me, I talked to you about making sure that we have working families, that we support working families' ability to secure homes. That could be on a spectrum, right? We want to ensure that we're covering levels of affordability, from ensuring that the unsheltered have housing and have safe housing, regardless of what that may look like, but also looking at affordability in the context of, are they ready to be able to secure a first-time homebuyer program? Are we offering the resources to ensure that families and working residents are able to secure perhaps their first home, or perhaps being able to have lenders that are friendly, that are able to provide a safe financial plan to ensure that they are able to move into purchasing a home, or in some instances, upgrading their first home. Now, we have to relook at what is available for first-time home buyers, what's available in the context of, is there enough homes built? Do we have to relook at doing multi-purpose housing opportunities, multi-senior, young, co-op type of housing projects to make sure.
2 minutes.
Oops.
You're fine. You're
All right.
fine.
Thank you, Leticia. I appreciate it. Aeiramique.
So yes, I agree with all the ladies in regards to how we tackle our affordable housing. And I think a lot of times people put our homeless, unsheltered population crisis, our affordable housing issues, pricing people out, and then all of the fixed income and rent control all under one umbrella. And the reality of it is that we need to, again, and I know you guys probably getting tired of me saying equity, 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 we need to meet people where they are. And one of the things that I have been working on, I have been a huge advocate of affordable housing and mixed family communities. And one of the models that I've been talking about for a long period of time now is in Mission Valley within this district, the 79th district. And it is a mixed family community where you have everything from luxury houses to affordable apartments to townhomes with parks and easy access to transportation, because that also helps us meet our climate goal changes. And so that is one of the things that I want to do on a bigger level. Not just in the 79th district, put more of those types of communities where everyone's on the equal playing field, no matter how much they make, and no matter where they are at, in their lives and their family dynamic. And that starts to move us to that place of equality and really building that unity that we're talking about where we want to get to. But I also believe that we need to make sure, studies have come out that, we've had redlining, we've had issues with banks not giving people of color loans, and we need to address those things and really get to those deep-rooted issues. So
2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aeiramique. First, I would just like to add one comment to all of what you said, which is a systemic issue, which has to do with the philosophy that our country has sort of found itself tossed into, which is building its economy on the housing market. I think it's a flawed, failed notion. Instead of at post-World War II, we built it on manufacturing, technology, innovation, and now we use debt as the method of our income base. So having you buy a house and go into debt for hundreds of thousands of dollars is what they want you to do, but it's a race. That's a race to the bottom. And so our philosophy around that economic model and the systemic level, I think, is also something that we should have to address on some level as well, along with the income inequality and things like that. Because most of us are baby boomers, and we can tell you when you graduated from college with your college degree, most of us could go and rent an apartment. And today, most kids graduate from college and can't afford to rent an apartment. They have to go back and move in with mom and dad. And so there's something wrong with that notion that we need to look at and be able to address across the board. There are a lot of other questions I'm sure that will be coming up. So I will, first of all, thank all of you for your commentaries and for your time this evening. There's going to be more questions, I assume, Mitch, that we can get to, or is that okay? Or how do you want to address the questions in the chat box and the couple more that I have on my cheat sheet here?
All right, let's do, you want to do the healthcare question? I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, so there's a question here, and again, please again take a minute or two just to respond if you can. Gavin Newsom campaigned in 2018 on a platform that included launching a single-payer healthcare program for all Californians. A lot has happened since that time. Do you support the single-payer system? What other health policy changes do you think California needs to make? And if I can, I'll start with Aeiramique on this, and I'll just go back down the list, if you don't mind.
Yes. So, I truly believe, and I have obviously had a lot of medical issues previous, as I stated before. And so I knew firsthand why it was so important that we have universal health care. But I want to go a step further. COVID amplified the deep-rooted issues we already knew were there. And I think one of the reasons why Gavin campaigned on this but didn't get this done, is really, we have to address the elephant in the room, which is that special interest, big pharma, medical associations that are putting money against making sure that all of us have that security around getting the medical care that we need. I don't feel like, there's some things that are privileges. I don't feel like life and death is a privilege. I believe that people need healthcare, and they need it now. And I think that was amplified when COVID put us all on the same playing field. So to answer that in short, yes, I'm very much an advocate and support, and I don't have special interest in my pockets. And so I will be fighting to get that done.
Thank you, Aeiramique. Leticia.
Thank you. Yes, Professor Epps, my commitment is 100% to a single payer model. I do believe that it's a critical time as COVID has demonstrated and highlighted the inequities in our community of access. I will share with all of you that one of my key areas of policy work has been public health. When I'm at the bargaining table representing workers, that's the #1 highest cost factor we deal with at any employer, at any bargaining table. So I will tell you that my commitment is to ensure that the underinsured are covered, that our underserved communities are covered, that our rural communities, such as in the Imperial Valley, they have limited access to hospital services. So you asked me, how are we going to fund this, right? We need to ensure that we have an equal playing field. There's a lot of people making a lot of money in the healthcare industry. The only way we're going to be able to secure single payer for all is to ensure that we take a look at the profit margins that are being attributed to the shareholders. And we need to take a look at making sure that pharmaceuticals, right? The money where money is being made by these companies, that they reinvest back in our communities. Rural communities as it is in the 79th, that need and have necessity to have access to healthcare. I'm recommitted to making sure that our communities have access to healthcare, and that we take a look at cutting profit margins where they're exorbitant and impacting our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. Shane, please.
Yes, I absolutely support single payer. I support the California Nurses Association, AB 1400, California Guaranteed Healthcare for All Act. I just had to laugh when you're like, Gavin Newsom said he was going to do single payer. It's like, oh, Gavin Newsom. Yeah, politicians say a lot of things when they're trying to get elected. It's interesting that so many people believe the things they say. I'm just like, don't tell me, show me. So one of the huge reasons business, obstacles for small businesses is healthcare is healthcare costs, right? So if we take that off the table, that creates a healthier economy in that sense also. And just to clarify, because earlier I thought your question was not about small business. I thought it was like the big corporate businesses that were leaving the state. So I'd focused my answer on that. I didn't mean to like slight the small business. Or I just had focused on, I thought, wait, so I just want to clarify that. Yeah, we need healthcare for all. We need people to not stay in jobs or take jobs based on whether or not they're going to have health insurance, or stay in marriages or get married based on whether it'll get them access to health insurance. The cost savings overall and the dramatic increase to the quality of life for the majority of Californians would be huge. And the fact that we all tacitly acknowledge that one medical emergency, even with healthcare, can basically financially ruin a person. And when we look and talk to people who are living out of their cars or in homeless shelters, a lot of them, it literally was a lack of health insurance or access to health services in a timely fashion. So, it's expensive to be poor. It's expensive to not be able to go to the dentist. It's expensive to not go in for preventative care. And we absolutely need to address this inequity, and it needs to happen 10 years ago. Thanks.
Thank you, Shane. Dr. Weber.
Thank you again for this question. And, you know, healthcare is a human right. The ability to have it, the ability to have access to it, the ability to have quality healthcare is a human right. I did my OBGYN residency at Cook County Hospital in Chicago. I was a county hospital. We took care of patients regardless if they had insurance. When I finished my fellowship in Cincinnati, I went and worked at Parkland Hospital in Dallas. That was a community hospital in Dallas. And again, very large hospital. We took care of patients regardless if they didn't have insurance. I was shocked when I returned home to San Diego to realize that we don't have a county hospital here. And I would have patients that I would see and diagnose with cancer, and I could not get them in to see a gynae oncologist because they didn't have either insurance or the right type of insurance. And I heard this from many other OBGYN colleagues within the San Diego area. And so, you know, I am very happy that people are really having this discussion again about ensuring that everyone has access to healthcare. I do support single payer. I do believe that here in California, we have the opportunity and the responsibility to do it and to do it correctly, not to do it in a knee-jerk fashion, but to really bring all parties to the table to figure out how we can do it. And once we do it, as everyone says, as California goes, so does the rest of the nation. We have the ability to do it. We should do it, and not just talk about having everyone have the ability to have healthcare, but quality healthcare and access. You know, one of the things that I have been in battle with Rady Children's is the fact that there are very little subspecialty clinics south of 8. So, you know, if you live in Chula Vista, if you live in La Mesa, if you live in Southeast San Diego, and you need to see a pediatric cardiologist, you've got to go to one of the other locations outside of your area. But we've got lots of satellite clinics in Oceanside, Encinitas, Escondido, Murrieta, but we don't have any south of 8. And so it's not just when we talk about healthcare and improving healthcare for individuals and families, having healthcare insurance is extremely important, but we also have to talk about the fact that you need to have access to quality healthcare in every community so that one community isn't burdened with having to go outside and seek quality healthcare when others are not. So thank you very much.
2 minutes. Oh, there you go. Great.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Mitch, so where are we at?
I think we got closing statements from the candidates.
Okay. So Dr. Weber, I'm going to start with you on your closing statement, and then I'll go up the list again. And again, I want to thank all of you for your time today. I must say that before you chime in that I've just been thoroughly, as I've seen in the chat room as well, they're thoroughly impressed with the candidates that we have in front of us, and you've all been just, you know, very gracious and very impressive. So thank you all very much tonight. So Dr. Weber, please.
Well, thank you all so much for having this forum. It's always good to come back to this club, my home club. You know, I have been very active, like I said before, within the Democratic Party, within the community. I was taught the principles that to whom much is given, much is required, and that it is, you know, my responsibility to make sure that I leave doors open so that others can come in behind me. And I do that as a community member. I work with our youth. I'm a STEM coordinator. I'm a science coordinator for a local STEM program for 4th through 8th grade students to make sure that we increase representation of our underrepresented minorities and females in those areas. I do that in the political arena to make sure that I am the voice for everyone and that everyone has access and the ability to know what's going on in their government. Transparency and communication is key. And I'm very proud that I have a significant number of endorsements. And these people have endorsed because they know me, they've worked with me, they've seen my work, and they know my heart. And so I'm very proud to say that I've been endorsed by the California Democratic Party, California Young Democrats, the California Legislative Black Caucus, the California Legislative Women's Democratic Caucus, our Senator Tony Atkins, our Secretary of State. I have the support of many unions such as UDW, SEIU, IBEW, and the Carpenters. I've also been endorsed by many local leaders, such as the mayors of San Diego, La Mesa, and National City, along with many city council members as well, such as everyone on the La Mesa City Council with me, regardless of their political affiliation. In addition to Monica Montgomery Steps, who's a very strong advocate on the San Diego City Council, and Mona Rios, who has been on the City Council of National City for a very long time. So that's just a small list of people who have worked with me. They've seen my work. They've either been on the MTS board with me, or we worked on other things around our cities locally. And I will be able to bring my history, my record of advocacy and getting things done to Sacramento to make sure that we continue to have a very strong advocate who's able to work across the aisles and make sure that the residents of the 79th are heard in every bill that comes out from our legislative process. So thank you so much for the invitation. And it's, like I said, it's very good to see you, Dr. Akilah Weber for 79th Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Weber. Shane, please.
So I'm the current National Education Association Director for San Diego County, which means the state of, CTA for California elected me to represent our county at the national level. And we met virtually in DC a couple weeks ago to discuss our national agenda. And just so you know what we've been working on, and I've been working on for about a decade. Right now, our priorities are defending and growing the labor movement, working to name, deconstruct, and dismantle white supremacy culture, both in our classrooms and in our communities, which seems to be a hot button issue in La Mesa right now. I've worked collectively with teachers in our union to push to decolonize our classrooms and our curriculum, and to champion the policies and legislation that would help close the opportunity gap that many of our students and their families face. At the state level, I serve on state council. I'm on the political involvement committee, and for the past 8 years, I've been closely analyzing state legislation and how it will affect our community. And I also follow the state budget because about 40% of the general fund goes towards public education. And I've just reached a point where instead of lobbying on legislation or hoping and praying, I would like to write legislation that will improve the quality of life and opportunities available to our communities, as well as critically evaluate proposed legislation through an equity lens and work to amend it before it's finalized. I have a decade-long track record of getting work done, and I'd like to work for our district at the state level. And then I think there's a sense, I've been just disappointed with the lack of urgency by our state leaders in getting resources out to our neediest community members, and disappointed that basically mutual aid groups had to swoop in and provide what should have been basic services provided by the state. Again, we have the money, it just seems to be a lack of will and ability to take action. So I promise that I'm endorsed by the California Teachers Association and about 150 people who generally never pay attention to politics, local community members who just know me from the last 2 decades, who are thrilled that I'm running and would like to see somebody who is really all about people and our communities, represent them at the state level. So Shane, Suzanne, Parmely, and thank you for considering me for 79.
Thank you, Shane. Leticia.
Well, I want to just say thank you to La Mesa Mesa-Foothills Club. I had a chance to do some research on all of you, and you have a big shout out as having had a previous award received for the great activism in your Go Team efforts prior years back. I want to thank you for hosting us this evening. I want to thank everybody who's been able to join this evening. My name's Leticia Munguia. I will be your first option on the ballot when you receive them in the next coming weeks. I'm a community organizer. I'm a labor advocate. I have been on the ground for the last 30 years advocating on behalf of our communities, and I'm ready to advocate on behalf of Assembly District 79 in Sacramento. You have my unequivocal commitment that you will have a champion in Sacramento to build a tomorrow that includes all. It's absolutely critical that we continue to advocate on behalf of our working families to get past this pandemic and to commence our healing process to move our communities forward. I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I stand on the shoulders of many. The Latino Legislative Caucus has endorsed me in the race. Senator Maria Elena Durazo has endorsed me in the race. Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez Fletcher has endorsed me, as well as Assembly Member Tasha Warner Horvath. I will share with you that I stand in front of you with support from 35 other elected officials that are in our public education, from community college to our educational K through 12 community districts, as well as our city council members. I thank you all for your consideration. You have decisions to make, and I give you my commitment that you will always have a seat at the table of justice for Assembly District 79. Please remember to vote Leticia Munguia on no later than April the 6th. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Leticia. Aeiramique?
Yes, again, thank you so much for having me tonight. You know, I'm running because we need someone who has the ability to deal with the roots and dig up the roots. Because if we keep cutting down the tree will just grow back. But we also need someone that has the ability to deal with the low-hanging fruits at the same time. And I'm that person. I've been that person with my equity and conflict resolution work, working on every end of government, really helping to get many of these public officials that we said we thought we needed in office. But one of the things that I have found, and that's why I'm not going to come to you with many endorsements, and there have been some that I've had to turn down, is because I'm unbought, I'm unbossed, and I really try to look at everything from a fair and righteous and just lens. I try to operate in a way that is independent, so that we can actually get things passed and actually get things done. We need policy that people can actually feel, and that's what I will provide. And that's really all I want to do. I want to continue the work that has been done, and that I've been doing throughout the district. And there was a question asked in the chat that said, why on the state level and not the local level for us? And for me, I can only speak for myself, is that I believe in knowing your gifts and your abilities and your talents, and understanding and knowing your lane. And I don't believe every seat is fit for every person. I believe that we all have gifts and abilities, and mine is around equity, transparency, and accountability. I'm really good at oversight. I'm really good at creating policy that I've helped with Monica Montgomery and so many others who actually have been able to pass really good policy. And that's the work. I've been the person behind the scenes, but I've also been the person in front of the camera fighting for justice as well. And so we need the mixture of both to get things done. And we need an independent person that's going to uplift the voices of the voters. And I'm that person. So you can start early voting on March 8th, and then also vote for me, Aeiramique Glass Blake, April 6th, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Aeiramique. And once again, thank you all so much, candidates, for being here this evening. And we wish all of you great success in your endeavors and going into this election cycle. And with that, I will turn it back over to Mitch to move forward with the remainder of the meeting.
Great. Thank you very much, Professor Epps. Great to have you as a host. Thanks to all of our candidates who spoke, who are, as Professor Epps said, each and every one of them outstanding. So now we're going to hear from past President Linda Armacost, who has some important business to share with the club. Linda, take it away.
Thank you, Mitch. And I just have to say, what wonderful candidates. It's so impressive. So you all are excellent, excellent. So thank you so much. I spoke to you last month briefly. I'll do it briefly again about the new bylaws that we're going to ask you to vote on tonight. I did send out, or Mitch sent out, a synopsis, excuse me, of the changes, and mostly they're just in two sections. One deals with candidate endorsement. Previously, we thought that we had to do public voting on endorsements. We found out that's not so. So the new, the changes just deal with balloting and how many rounds there will be. This does not in any way impact our existing bylaws on friendly incumbent endorsements. And the only other amendment to that, which you previously voted on, which Tina spoke to at the beginning of the meeting, is that it's our policy not to endorse in primary elections where 2 or more Democrats are running. The other change deals with statements made by the club, and this has become a little bit more elaborative, so that should the club and the board decide to make a statement, we do have a media person, probably Mitch, that will do that. Previously, if we wanted to make a statement of any sort, we had to come before the club and get a quorum in order to make the statement. Well, by that time, you know, statements are usually time sensitive. The statement would no longer be relevant. So at this point then, hopefully you've had a chance to review the bylaws, understand the synopsis. So I would ask for a move to adopt the new bylaws as revised.
So moved.
Second?
Raise your hand. Use the raise hand button for a second.
Chris, second. So all in favor?
Good. Raise your hand if you're in favor. Use the raise hand button.
If you know where it is.
We've got a bunch of hands up.
All right, excellent. I think that's done. Thank you so much. Mitch, are you going to handle the other situation with our awesome moderator?
Yes. Why don't you do that? Because I don't have the right language, even though I support it.
Okay. Thank you again. As you know tonight, our moderator with a huge, wonderful resume is Professor Rick Epps. And at our last board meeting, he was accepted as a board member at large. We are so thrilled to have made this wonderful find, I guess. He's awesome. We love him. And I have to thank Sharon Cox for bringing Rick on board. And so again, I'll ask for a motion to accept Professor Rick Epps as a board member at large.
So moved.
A second? A second? Anybody?
There's lots of seconds. I saw Chris's hands first, Chris Pearson.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Hands up.
Yay. All right. Congratulations, Professor Rick Epps.
Congratulations, Professor Epps, and welcome to the board.
Thank you. And thank you, Sharon, my high school classmate and dear friend for years that I can count. Just for a few years, Sharon, just for a few years.
That's what they all say.
All right. So is that it, Linda?
That's it. Thank you.
All right. So we're getting to the final stages here. First of all, a quick reminder to please pay your club dues for 2021 if you have not done so already. Somebody who is co-host of this meeting has not paid. That someone may be me. So Katie reminded me I need to pay my dues. Katie, you had the text. Yeah, just scroll up in the chat a little bit. You'll be able to see how to pay. Just go to the club website and look for the pay your dues button up at the top. And now we're going to make time for local leaders to talk about things that are important for them to know about. Also for you guys to share a little bit about what's important in your lives going down this week. As Tina said, if you have a new garden or a new puppy, let's hear from what people have to say. Please use the raise hand button, not physically, just use the raise hand button or leave a message in the chat and we'll call on you. And we're going to start with up at the top here with Doug Case. Doug, you're up.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Doug Case. As most of you know, I'm the Political Affairs Director for Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, and it's been a couple of very busy weeks in the legislature. Last week, the legislature approved and the governor signed a bill that provides a $7.6 billion in COVID stimulus relief. That includes $2.3 billion that provides $600 payments to those with very low incomes, i.e. less than $30,000 a year. And it also provides those payments to undocumented tax-paying households that were excluded from the relief. There's also $2.1 billion in grants of $25,000 each for small businesses and nonprofits, and $400 million to provide stipends of $525 per child enrolled in state-subsidized childcare. And then you may have seen earlier this week, the legislature and the governor came to an agreement on reopening the schools. There'll be $2 billion in incentives in the form of money to reopen schools. That money can be used for things like testing, equipment, and so forth, provided that they reopen certain grades and provide education to the high needs classifications of students April the 1st. That it also provides $4.6 billion in money to address the issue of lost learning. And so that can be used to extend the instructional school year during the summer. It can be used for additional staff and so forth. And so then a couple of appointments that the pro tem made. Dr. Shirley Weber created, and the governor signed last year, a bill that creates a reparations task force. And she appointed to that task force San Diego City Council member Monica Montgomery Stepp. And then she also had 2 appointments to the Healthy California Commission, which is a commission which is studying a strategy for bringing a single-payer healthcare to California. And one of her 2 appointments to that commission is Kara Desert, who is the CEO of the San Diego LGBT Community Center and the previous executive director of Immigration Equality. And so I look forward to coming back on a monthly basis and giving an update. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Doug. Next up, we're going to hear from my neighbor, Dave Myers. I walked past his house this afternoon. Take it, Dave. I got to unmute you first. All right, unmuting. You are unmuted in theory, or you can.
There we go. Thank you, Mitch. Good to see everybody, even though it's virtual. We haven't seen each other in a long time. And maybe one of these days we'll all get to see each other in person again. But what I wanted to bring to the club's awareness, and I have talked about this in the past, but it's become a bigger problem, is the continuation of deaths in the San Diego County jails. San Diego County jails is known as having the highest rate of inmate mortality of the 6 largest jails in the state of California. 80% of the jail deaths are from the Black and brown community, and 82% of those have not been convicted of a crime. Millions of dollars have been paid out in settlement claims because of negligence, money which could go to preventative programs to incarceration. And we really don't know what's going on in custody settings. The county has a law enforcement review board that's mandated to investigate all jail deaths. They recently commissioned a subcommittee to look into the jail deaths. However, this is the same county law enforcement review board that recently dismissed without investigating 22 jail death cases because they simply did not have time nor expertise. So what I'm asking is this club to put it on your radar is to join in several other Democratic clubs that are going to draft a resolution asking our local elected state representatives to demand a state audit into the county jail system here in San Diego and provide solutions. I'm going to put some links in the chat for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dave. That's a very important issue. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Next, we're going to hear from Michelle Krug. So unmuting you now, Michelle, you're up.
Thank you, Mitch. Regional Director for Area 20. Good evening, La Mesa Democrat. I want to I think everybody probably knows, but there have been some changes in the ADEM election totals. There was a challenge that was made that got resolved by the California Democratic Party on Monday night. And so if you go back to the condemn.org website, You'll be able to see the new election totals. So if somebody was originally put up as having been the winner and that changes, those people will still be allowed to attend the conventions as the guest of the CDP. But just know that there are some changes, that there were 1,500 votes that were counted that had been received after February 3rd. They were dated February 3rd, postmarked February 3rd, and received up until February 20th. And those were decided during the challenge to go ahead and count because of the pandemic situation. So just making you aware of that. March 21st, Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m. I will be holding a Region 20 delegates meeting, but anybody in San Diego County who's a Democrat is always invited to my meetings. We will be having all 10 of the candidates running for the California Democratic Party officer positions. So chair, self-identified female vice chair, self-identified other than female vice chair, controller, and secretary have all agreed to come. I will get the link to Cody Vieira, who's sending it out to all the clubs. Again, anybody is invited, or you're welcome to contact me directly. If someone wants to put my phone number in the chat, that's fine. And the ballots will be sent out for those elections starting on March 24th. So just be aware that this is coming up. March 24th, they need to be returned by April 21st. The convention will be April 29th through May 2nd. So the decision as to these party officers will be happening before the convention actually takes place. I think that's it. So if anybody has any questions, you're welcome to contact me at 619-888-4974, 619-888-4974. Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, I see two more raised hands. One of them is from my fellow board member, Sharon Cox. So Sharon, speak.
All righty. Just a quick note, earlier this evening, I presented a resolution to the California or to the County Democratic Party's Resolution Committee opposing the Cottonwood Sand Mine in Rancho San Diego. It was approved unanimously, and it'll go to the Central Committee later this month. If you're not aware of what's been going on, we've been fighting it for a couple years. It's a long game, and I'm just kind of doing whatever steps we can to make sure that people are aware of it. I will keep you updated when it does come before a 45-day period where people can comment on it. It'll go to the Valadero Planning Group, and then it'll go to the County Board of Supervisors if it gets that far. We're just putting whatever roadblocks we can in front of the developer so that we can stop that very horrible project. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, I see two more raised hands. Next, we're going to hear from Linda again. Going once for Linda. Oh, there we go.
Sorry. A couple questions. I know the election for the 79th Assembly is April 26th. Is that correct? No.
That I do.
No, the primary is April 6th.
April 6th.
Mm-hmm. And all ballots will be mailed. All ballots will be mailed to the homes, but some of the voting centers will be open on that day as well.
April 6th. And someone talked about March 8th. Is that not a factor?
That's when the ballots will be mailed to your home. That's when you'll get it in your box.
And then the election will be in June?
So if no one gets 50+1, then it will go to a runoff, which will be June 8th.
Thank you. That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's see, we've got one more raised hand that I see, but if anybody else has anything they need to or want to share with the club, please raise your hand. Otherwise, Ann McDonald will be our last speaker. Ann, you're up.
Yes, I'm with the San Diego Public Library Foundation, and there is a survey that the city of San Diego is doing for the libraries. We're trying to develop a new master plan. And if you use any of the City of San Diego library branches, please go to the library website and fill out the survey. And it will take just a few minutes, but it's very interesting. Our goal is to have about 10,000 responses, and we need to hear from everybody who uses the library, whether they live in Santee, La Mesa, El Cajon, or wherever. So please help with that survey. It will help us assess our needs and what our library needs to do for the next quarter century. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann. All right. And before we go, Tina Reinberg, our club president, asked me to remind everyone that we have opportunities on the board for VP programming to help set up these fine meetings that you have all been enjoying and we have all been enjoying. Additionally, we need a secretary and also a treasurer. Particular need for a treasurer there, someone with financial skills. Nobody ever lets me go near money, and they're smart to do so. Additionally, we have Patricia Dean has just popped in with a last-minute announcement, running through the door as it was swinging shut. So, no, I'm sorry, it's Patrick Dean. Your name just looks like Patricia. I don't know. All right, I'm unmuting you. Here we go.
They call me that in the kitchen a lot, but I this last year I've been doing a lot of work. We're getting the La Mesa Community Garden up and running. That's going to be the first community garden in La Mesa. The application is available at I put it in the chat at the La Mesa Parks.org is the Mesa Parks and Rec Foundation, which is kind of helping us with the financing and overseeing it. But there's going to be hopefully so many people looking for beds that we're going to have a lottery. There's going to be about $100 a year probably to get a 4x8 garden box with soil, water, everything but the seeds and the plants and the time. And we are hoping that it's going to be a big success. We've got about 40 boxes built already. It's right across from the community garden pool where the golf course used to be. And come and get your name in. Also, if you know anybody that doesn't have room for garden and would like to be involved, please let them know, get their applications in. If they can't afford $100 a year, we'll find a way to fix that. There are some beds set aside for low income. There are ADA accessible beds. I'm very excited about it. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. That sounds like a great project and one that will benefit the whole community. All right, I see no more raised hands. So I think we're wrapping up. Thank you for staying with us tonight. Join us for our next meeting. It's Wednesday, April 7th. Same time, same Zoom URL. Look for a replay of this meeting on our YouTube channel. Just search for La Mesa-Foothills Democratic Club on YouTube and subscribe while you are there. Also look for links to the video on our website, Facebook page, and Twitter account, and in our email update. That's all going to be going out pretty soon. The website is La Mesa-Foothills Democratic Club.com, or if that is too much for you to type, LMFDems.com. The Facebook page is also the name of the club. On Twitter, we're LMFDems. And if you want to sign up for our email updates, go to the website and look for the Get Email Updates link at the top of the page. Thanks to the board for their hard work arranging this meeting, and also thanks to our guests and candidates, and to you for spending some of your valuable time with us. Good night, everybody. Stay healthy, stay sane. We'll see you again soon. Message to my wife, if you're still watching on YouTube, I will be out in a minute and ready for our evening snack. I'm cutting the meeting off now. Good night, everybody.